This is going to be a step-by-step how to build the RitKeep Nimitz N1. If you want to see a review of this equipment in use, click the link down below where I give a full review. But if you just bought a Nimitz N1 and you want to see somebody build theirs step-by-step, every single thing they did to make it perfect, that's what this video is. I built like 9 or 10 of these type of racks at this point. When you're reading the instructions, you get an image in your head of how you think it goes. You put it together, and the next thing you know, you realize that hole that's at the bottom needs to be at the top. That's what this video is for. Hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. Watch this video of me building mine, and you'll be able to put yours together on the first try. The first time I built one of these, I was a little nervous at a few steps. Like, one, I'm building it by myself. So sometimes it helps to see how somebody else who was building it by themselves figured out how to put different parts together and in what order. Another thing is when I ran the cables the first time, if you've never done it before, it's not necessarily intuitive to figure out from the diagram exactly how the cables go. So I'm going to show you how to run the cables. When you're building one of these all-in-ones, it's so important that you do not tighten the bolts until you finish. You just want to get everything secure, but don't fully tighten any of the bolts. The nice thing about this Nimitz N1 is they designed these base pieces so you can slide a wrench under the base to hold the head of the bolt while you tighten the nut on top. So that when you're done, you can go back and tighten any of these bottom base supports without having to lift up the entire machine. The instructions on this are really good. It was one of the easiest all-in-one builds that I've ever done. There are a few steps later on though, like step 16, when you install the Smith bar. It is super helpful to see someone else do it first before you start. Make sure that the laser cut numbers are facing to the front. The right-hand side one is angled in. The left-hand side one is also angled in. So that's how you know which one is the right and the left. Okay. This build has a lot of different sized nuts and bolts, so what I like to do is separate everything out and make sure it's clearly labeled so that when I'm grabbing a nut or a bolt, I know I'm getting the correct size for that step in the instructions. Step 9 can be a little tricky if you're trying to build this by yourself. Now, keep in mind that the instructions advise you have 2 people for this build. I'm not advising that you use my method instead. I'm just sharing with you how I did it because I was building this by myself. For you, I'm advising that you have a second person help you and you follow the instructions exactly. What I did was I attached one bolt on one side and then I used the other side to balance the beam so that I could go over to the other side, put it in place, and then attach a single bolt on that side. Once I had one bolt on each side, I was good to go. To get this ring installed, I had to see the holes from above. So as you can see here, I got on a step ladder and looked down at the holes. As soon as I saw the holes, I was able to slide it right into place. This was the first mistake I made during my installation. As you can see here, I had one of these screws in the wrong hole. You want to make sure that you leave the correct hole empty because later in the build, that is where you're going to attach the upper band peg. So I had to do a quick swap right here. If you've never put one of these together before, the instructions don't specifically say that you have to hammer this expansion pin into place. So the first time I did one of these, I just didn't get it from the picture in the instructions what exactly I was supposed to do. This is as good as welded together, and it is part of the reason that this weight stack feels so precise. Before I put these weight stacks on, I have to have this in the exact position that I want it to stay in. It's hard to move this thing once you have all that weight on those weight stacks. So I'm gonna put this against my wall where I wanna keep it permanently. Then we're gonna put the weight stacks on. When I install these weight stacks, I like to stack the bottom 5 or 6 plates first, then I put the guide rods in place. Every plate that I don't have to lift over my head and slide down the guide rods makes my life a little bit easier. The trick is you have to get them all lined up perfect so that the guide rods will slide in easily. My Nimitz is the Pro version, so I have this extra piece that goes on the top of my weight stack so that I can add extra plates. If you did not get the Pro version, you will not complete this step. these plates are exactly the same on both sides. These Smith machine guide rods are solid steel with a hole drilled in one end. Make sure that the end with the hole is on the top. I put everything on the bar so that I could make sure it was in the correct order. The linear bearing piece that connects to the actual Smith bar has to be facing the correct direction so that the longer side is facing out. Once I got that in the correct position, I guided the linear bearings onto the Smith bar from the side. It's a little tricky to get the guide rod into the bottom hole, so I rested it on the ground. And as you can see, I used my foot to keep all the pieces from falling off while I carefully finessed the rod into place. I like how the guide rods bolt at the top and at the bottom. Whenever installing linear bearings, I'm always extra careful because if you bang or drop those bearings, it could cause damage, and that could mean additional noise, extra vibration. This is the most delicate part of the entire Smith machine, so when you install it, just treat it with care.
Dang it, this is the mistake. I do it.
The second mistake of my build so far, I put the rubber stopper in the wrong spot. It needs to be on top of the springs, but I only had to undo 2 screws to get this one fixed, so no big deal.
Ooh. That is solid as a rock. There is very little, almost no back and forth play in this bar. Dude, I love that.
All of the pulley wheels come pre-installed on the Nimitz except 3 on the top of both sides. When I run the cables, the first thing I do is I set out all the cables on the floor so I can see what I'm working with. This build has 1 long cable and 1 short cable for each side of the machine. I started by running the short cable first on both sides. One end of the cable has a bolt that screws into the top support. I removed the end piece from the other end of the cable with an Allen wrench and then guided it through all the pulleys. This cable design is a little unique of any that I've built because it enables the cable system to connect to the Smith bar to allow for the counterbalance. After I install each cable, I go back through and check each pulley wheel and make sure that the cable is correctly positioned on each wheel. After you run your cables, if they are loose or you have slack, you can remove that slack and tighten it down by adjusting the bolt at the top, and or you can tighten down this pulley wheel on the top of the stack. I needed to tighten up my cable, so I temporarily removed the cable from this pulley so that I could rotate it and tighten it down. Then I put the cable back on, tightened the pulley wheel back in place, and it was perfect. I needed to move the rack out from my wall a little bit to install the weight storage on the back. Even though the rack with weight stacks weighs 720 pounds, I was able to shimmy it around a little bit, enough to get it where I needed it. The stickers are pretty tough. I had one that was off center and I was able to remove it, reapply it, no problem. It didn't damage the sticker at all, and it still stuck just as good to the weight stack the second time I applied it. Once everything is done, I go back and tighten all the bolts. When I tighten the bolts on the pulleys, I always check that the pulley still rolls freely after I tighten it. I'm also careful not to over tighten these bolts. The last thing that I want to do is have one pulley wheel that's not rolling freely and cause extra friction in my system. When I tighten the bolts on the pulley sliders, I like to over tighten them so that it adds friction when I slide the slider up and down, and then I back them off until I get them exactly where I want them. That way my pulley sliders aren't loose and they just feel a little bit more stable on the upright when I move them up and down.
The RitKeep Nimitz N1 is complete. The build quality on this machine is insane. It blew me away. But the build was easy, very straightforward. The instructions were great, tons of pages in the manual.
It probably took me about 8 hours. I took my time. I did 3 hours one day, 3 hours yesterday, and then a couple hours today. But that's including tightening all the bolts, putting on the stickers, running the cables. Every single thing is perfect and tight and ready to go now. Now for the fun part. I'm gonna put this bad boy to the test. I'm gonna bench 405 on it. I'm gonna squat heavy on that Smith bar. We're gonna try to see what lifts we can do, maxing those stacks out. RitKeep Nimitz N1, it's a beast. This could be my new all-time favorite all-in-one Smith machine functional trainer that I've had. That is a wrap on the build video. If you wanna see the full review, I'm gonna include the link in the description below. Give me a subscribe, follow my channel, give me a thumbs up. That's all I got. More cool stuff to come. Keep grinding.